Jabal Irhound is the place where the oldest hominid fossils have been discovered, and it is 300,000 years old. Agriculture started 10,000 years ago. I've already told you that if human life has existed for this long, agriculture started in the last 1 centimeter of it. So, normally, what humans had was a surplus. Nature provided us with a surplus. We were small group animals. We went out. We picked up fruits. We picked up tubers. We ate them. This is how life has been for the first almost 300,000 years. Last 10,000 years is when we had agriculture. So how this relates further into the caste system is what I will be talking about now. And before I talk about that, I have to talk to you about how the small group animals behaved. The small group animals had an egalitarian system. That is, if one human brings certain amount of wealth in terms of food, everybody in the community gets an equal share of it. This is how it always was till agriculture started. And in the small group society, the most respected person was the shaman. Shaman is the person who communicates with the spirits. And the person who communicates with the spirits is the most valued person in a small group. A group from somewhere between 50 to 150 humans. I have to also tell you about the marital relationship that was very common, and in fact the norm back then. The norm was that any female could have sex with any number of males, and any male could have sex with any female in the group. But then, you should also understand that egalitarianism was so strong that any food they bring in was also shared. At the same time, the body was also shared among all the people in the group. The body is as good as food. The body is shared as well. And somebody who does not share her or his body with all the group members would be called stingy, and whatever name they had for genitals. Stingy, and then whatever name they have for genitals. This was the common practice. To avoid being called so, everybody shared everything with everyone, including sex. This is how we evolved. And then what happens later is in the last part, 10,000 years ago, we started agriculture. When agriculture starts, we'll have to get sedentary. We'll have to stick to the same place so that we can harvest after some time. And then the concept of work originates. Till then, there's no concept of work. We simply pick up fruits, we pick up tubers, we eat them, and it is done. But when did the concept of work, slavery, labor, all this originate? It started with agriculture. Agriculture is a catastrophe. I know the meaning of the word and I am rightly using it. There is no bigger catastrophe than agriculture. Something that competes with agriculture would be the release of carbon dioxide by use of fossil fuels, or development of nuclear weapons that could destroy humanity. And those are the two things that compete with agriculture. When I cross-check with respect to the entire human history as to what disastrous things they have done. Agriculture needed stoop labor, people who work in the farms, and that was the cause of population growth. People think the other way around generally, but it is not so. And this kind of stoop labor created classification of work. What would actually happen is there's a group of people, small group animals, a group of 100 people, say, that have settled down in a particular place and they have started agriculture. Agriculture is a disaster, natural disaster. Like if you have a natural disaster, there's a flood or a volcano or something like that, then something that quickly populates the space are weeds. That which quickly populates the space are weeds like rice, grain, corn, yeah, whatever we consume on a daily basis. And those weeds are the root of civilization. So once you start consuming weeds, it is not long before you have the caste system. Listen to how I break this down. When something like this happens, the nature's biological clock resets to zero. Every time you plow the field, you are resetting the nature's biological clock to zero. Nature prefers perennials, not annuals. Agricultural crops are annuals or lesser. So nature does not prefer them. And that is why weeds continuously get into our agriculture produce. So once work originated, we had stoop labor necessary, and then population growth happened, and then we had classification of work. People who need to eat foods that are going to help them do the stoop labor, and people who follow the shaman, people who rule, people who trade. These were the four kinds of societies that were established. In fact, the shaman was the person who chooses the king, the ruler, the decision maker. Once the decision maker was chosen, that was the person who decided who could be the stoop labor, who could be the trader, and so on. Once we harvest crops, we create wealth, that is grain. That is abundance of grain. We get to put grain at a place and control grain. Once we have control of resources, there's a definite need for a king, the person who dictates how the resources should be controlled. And once there's among, say for example, we have one person who was decided as the king. He has, say, we have more people who could be decided as the king in the next generation. But then they have conflicting values, they have conflicting ideas. Then what happens is the group gets divided. The first conflict that is recorded happened at Nataruk in Africa 10,000 years ago. Before that, there is no concept of war for 300,000 years. That is, humans never fought with each other. But then, 10,000 years ago, once the concept of wealth was generated, conflict started. We actually have 24 fossils of humans at Nataruk, Africa, which clearly indicate how human conflict created death. Before that, there is no evidence of conflict. Another thing that is worth mentioning is the male parental investment. That is, the amount of wealth that I have will decide how good or how important a girl that I would wed would be. Initially, it started among tribes. For example, there are 4 tribes. One tribe decides, looks up upon one female as the most beautiful female, as the most attractive female of their tribe. So that female has to be with somebody else. So they would always pick the king of another tribe, the other three tribes. So while picking the king of other three tribes, they would choose that tribe which has the maximum amount of grains and storage. This is called male parental investment. Later on, this scenario gets changed. So the king could choose the most beautiful bride. That is when the importance of power came into picture. I'll talk more about how a female chooses a male and what are the important things there. But this is the origin of that concept. And then we have all these ideas running because of culturally imposed concepts, not genetically evolved. Once you start agriculture, you are doing culturally something different than what human beings evolved to be. Then we observe that after a few generations, the mindset, the physique, and the appearance of people doing different tasks change. Once this happens, we have an analogy for that. People understand it by a particular analogy and a particular concept. The concept that is involved here is the seed land analogy. Say for example, we have an extremely fertile land. You would want to plant the best seeds there. You have a land that is almost unusable. You would want to plant the last quality of seeds there. So what you do is you classify seeds and you classify land into four categories. You classify seeds into the best quality, second best quality, third best, fourth best quality. And then you classify land into the first best quality, the most fertile land, second best quality, third best quality, and the fourth best quality. The seed is the male. The land is the female. I have already told you how Mother Earth is considered as a female because of tolerance. The male is the seed. So, the idea is that if I have a shaman, he is the first class of people. If I have a ruler whom I have chosen as the king by being a shaman, he is the second class of people. If I have a person who is a trader, he is the third class of people. And if I have a person who is doing service to all these three classes of people, he is the fourth class of people. So I have four categories of people who have continued to work in this particular manner. So what I do is, I will tell that a shaman seed can be planted in any land, whatever be the quality of the land. But a second quality seed putting on a fertile land is waste of resource. A third quality seed being applied to any land other than third or fourth quality is a waste of resource. A fourth quality seed should always be put on a fourth quality land. And this is the origin of caste system. That is, shaman and his followers and the people who are very close to him were becoming the priests. The ruler was becoming the kshatriya. The trader was becoming the vaishya. And the serviceman was becoming the shudra. And this is how we got four different categories of people. I'll introduce you to marriage. Marriage was an agreement between different tribes. If I have a tribe, then the best female of my tribe should be marrying the ruler of another tribe. So this is how I consider it. That is with respect to social status. The second thing that I will value is male parental investment. How much grain did the person store so that my girl stays happy? So this is the second thing. And then what happens is, We have a situation where one person marries one girl. The problem with this is the deficit in female pleasure. Females have not evolved to have sex with just one man. Females would take at least some 15 minutes for an orgasm, and males would take 3 minutes. How does this synchronize in the evolutionary history? What happens is a female has sex with multiple males one after another and reaches the height of her pleasure, while the males also reach the height of their pleasure. Human body's physiology is developed in such a way that the male that next has sex with the female removes all the semen from the female, say, genital organs. And that is how the next male tries to impregnate. And this is how evolution has worked out in humans to mean the survival of the fittest. But then, once we have agriculture, once we have monoculture, one kind of crops that populate, this bears a striking similarity with the attitude of human beings also. That is, humans also start mating such that one male marries one female. Just like weeds pop up in the land, many other males try to pop up within the female. Point of interest. So this was a dangerous situation, and the males really wanted to value the male parental investment. So what they did is put up a culture, put up a narrative where the females who had association with just one male were considered to be the best of us, and then make stories and stories and stories. I cannot emphasize on the number of stories and culturally impregnated thoughts that people have put into telling that a female that has sex with only one male and that is pair bonded is the best kind of female. They have demonized the female, they've demonized the female from getting into any extramarital affairs. Something like demonizing the ability or the sex desire of females with respect to any other male other than her pair bonded person. No other animal does this. No other animal. Imagine two bulls marrying, a bull marrying a cow. Imagine an elephant marrying another elephant. Imagine a deer marrying another deer. It never happens. So this whole concept of pair bonding is human culturally evolved just because of agriculture. So what happens later is the female would want to choose the male with particular characteristics. And what characteristics are those? Then we come to the hypergamy triangle. What is the hypergamy triangle? The topmost peak of the triangles is money. The second thing is physical strength. The third thing is social status. So money, physical strength and social status are the things that will determine if a girl is interested in you or not. How dangerous is this? It is not evolution at play. It is not genetic information. It is only cultural information. It is cultural information because pair bonding is made the norm by so many stories and stories and stories of pair bonded females that have stuck to one male getting so many benefits in this life and afterlife. Afterlife I'll talk to you about in another video. What rebirth means scientifically. For now, this is what we need. Agriculture made all this possible. And religion, we don't have religion, we have varnas. We don't even have the caste. Caste is a British originated term. The term has some British origin. Varna is Indian origin. So Varnas was extremely important because of the seed land concept. But agriculture is what is the root cause of it. It is a disaster. Varna system is a disaster, but the cause of it is agriculture. So we will demonify agriculture. And then the second thing to note is caste system is of British origin. We never had caste system. Varnas is what we had. Another thing to note is intermixing various varnas, the four varnas, is a bigger disaster than making the varnas in first place. Why is it a bigger disaster? You are throwing any seeds onto any kind of land. The last kind of seeds are falling into the most fertile land, and the most fertile seeds could fall into the last kind of land. What will this create? It will create crops, it will create produce that is much less worthy of use. So this is what has happened. So when I come down to the prophecies of the end of Kaliyug, there are two prophecies that got justified by this explanation. The first one, intermixing of the varnas. You see that happening everywhere, and I've already told you why it is a disaster, a bigger disaster than creation of varnas. The second prophecy is by mutual verbal agreement marriages happen. How was the marriage in the first place? It was an agreement between various tribes. The whole society had to accept the marriage. Now, by just mutual verbal agreement between the two individuals that are marrying, marriages happen. This is the worst thing that could have happened. So, I've decoded the prophecies, I've told you how the caste system got into place. Thank you.